The massive space station Apex 7 floated in the darkness between stars. Its metal walls stretched for miles in every direction. Inside the main council chamber, 12 different alien species sat around a circular table that gleamed under bright white lights. Commander Lee Tiemann stood at the center of the room. His dark blue Earth Defense Force uniform was perfectly pressed. The human flag patch on his shoulder showed a small blue planet against black space. His hands were steady as he held a data pad containing humanity's military records. Delegates Tiemann began, his voice clear and strong. Earth requests membership in the Galactic Defense Council. We offer our military expertise and our willingness to defend innocent worlds. A low hissing sound came from across the table. Vorthok, the reptilian delegate, rose from his seat. His green scales caught the light as he moved. His yellow eyes looked cold and cruel. His forked tongue flicked out to taste the air. Military expertise? Vorthok's voice was like gravel scraping against stone. These humans are weak creatures. They leak salt water from their eyes when they feel pain or sadness. How can such pathetic beings help defend the galaxy? Murmurs of agreement rippled around the table. Crystalline Nexari representative began to glow brighter. Nexari laughed. Their crystal bodies made musical sounds like wind chimes. The sound filled the chamber as other delegates joined in. "We have studied human behavior," said the Nexari called Quartz Prime. Its voice sounded like singing crystal. Their emotional responses make them unstable. Combat simulations. Human. Soldiers break down and cry. They cannot control their feelings. This makes them dangerous to work with. Admiral Park Hye-jin sat in the human observation section. Her gray hair was pulled back in a tight bun. Her face showed no emotion, but her hands gripped the armrests of her chair. She had served in Earth's military for 30 years. Seen good soldiers die in pointless wars, she had also seen those same soldiers save civilians without thinking of their own safety. Captain Kim Min-ho stood beside Admiral Park. He was younger, with broad shoulders and careful eyes. He watched the alien delegates mock his species and felt anger building in his chest. His jaw tightened as he listened to their words. "Perhaps these humans could serve as cleaners or food preparers," suggested another delegate. This one looked like a giant insect with 4 arms. But soldiers? Never. Vorthok activated a holographic display above the table. Images appeared in the air showing human soldiers in battle. The first image showed a woman in combat armor kneeling beside a fallen comrade. Tears ran down her dirty face as she tried to stop the bleeding from his wounds. "Look at this pathetic display," Vorthok said with disgust. "This is Sergeant Cho Yaram of the Human Defense Corps. She cries like a child while her teammate bleeds. Where is her strength? Where is her warrior spirit?" More images appeared. Human soldiers helping wounded civilians while tears streamed down their faces. Medical officers breaking down after losing patients. Commanders weeping as they read casualty reports. The alien delegates laughed louder with each image. Some made clicking sounds with their mandibles. Others flashed colors across their skin to show amusement. The Nexari delegates chimed like broken bells. "In our culture," said a tall gray alien with no visible mouth, "warriors do not show such weakness. Emotion clouds judgment. It makes soldiers unreliable. These humans cannot control basic biological responses." Admiral Park stood up slowly. All eyes turned to her. The laughter died down as she walked to the center of the room. She was not young anymore, but she moved with the confidence of someone who had commanded fleets in real battles. "Honorable delegates," she said in a calm voice, "those images show human soldiers saving lives. Sergeant Cho Yaram, who you mock, carried 3 wounded civilians to safety while under enemy fire." She cried because she cared about the people she was protecting. Vorthok hissed again. Caring is weakness. A true warrior feels nothing for those who cannot defend themselves. "The human who treated wounded enemies after battle," Admiral Park continued, pointing to another image. "He wept because he understood that his enemies were also someone's children, but he still defeated them in fair combat." "Exactly our point," said Quartz Prime. "Humans waste energy on useless emotions. They should focus on winning battles, not feeling sorry for their enemies, the vote was called. One by one, the delegates voted against humanity's membership. The reptilians voted no while hissing their disgust. The insect-like hive representatives clicked their disapproval. The crystal Nexari rang out their rejection in harsh tones. Only the peaceful Valdorians abstained from voting. Their delegate, a tall being covered in soft fur, looked sad, but said nothing. 11 votes against, 0 votes in favor, 1 abstention, announced the council chairman. Earth's application for membership is rejected. Captain Kim Min-ho felt his hands shake with anger. He watched alien species who had never faced real hardship judge his people. These beings lived in perfect societies where war was just a game. Played with computers and drones. They'd never held a dying friend in their arms. Had never had to choose between saving 1 life or saving 10. As the council session ended, Orthok approached the human delegation. His reptilian face showed something that might have been a smile, but his sharp teeth made it look threatening. Perhaps in a few thousand years, these humans will evolve beyond their primitive emotional responses, he said. Until then, they might prove useful as janitors or cooks. We can find work for them cleaning our starships. Admiral Park looked directly into Vorthak's yellow eyes. We will remember your words, delegate. The human delegation left the chamber in silence. Behind them, alien voices continued to mock and laugh. Captain Kim Min-ho helped Admiral Park gather their papers and data files. What do we do now? Min-ho asked quietly. Admiral Park looked back at the chamber where alien delegates were still, congratulating themselves on keeping weak humans out of their alliance. We go home, she said. We train harder. We prepare for the day when the galaxy needs us. And if that day never comes? Admiral Park smiled for the first time since arriving at the station. Oh, it will come. The universe has a way of teaching lessons to those who think they know everything. As their transport ship left Apex 7, Commander Lee Taman sat in the pilot's seat and looked back at the massive station. Somewhere inside, alien species were planning their perfect defenses against threats they had never truly faced. They think tears make us weak, he said to himself. They have no idea what strength really looks like. The small human ship disappeared into hyperspace, carrying its crew back to a blue world where warriors wept for their enemies and still found the courage to fight for what was right. 6 months had passed since the Galactic Defense Council rejected Earth's membership. The sting of that humiliation still burned in the hearts of human military leaders. But life continued, and Earth's forces kept training and preparing for conflicts that might never come. The mining colony of Tiamat 4 sat on the edge of known space. 3,000 colonists worked there, digging precious metals from the planet's crust. The colonists came from many different worlds. Humans, Nexari, and peaceful Valdorians, all lived together in the underground city. The colony's defense force consisted of 50 Nexari crystal warriors. Their energy weapons could slice through solid rock. Their crystalline armor could deflect most attacks. According to Galactic Defense Council doctrine, 50 Nexari soldiers could protect any mining operation on a quiet Tuesday morning. Everything changed. The hive came without warning. These insect creatures were known throughout the galaxy as savage raiders. They attacked in swarms, overwhelming their enemies with sheer numbers. But the hive rarely ventured this far into civilized space. Defense Commander Court 7 was monitoring. The morning shift when his sensors screamed warnings, hundreds of hive ships were dropping out of hyperspace around Tiamat 4. The insect warriors began landing immediately, their chittering voices filling the communication channels. All units, defensive positions, Court 7 commanded. His crystal body pulsed with confident blue light. Standard energy barrage. These primitives cannot withstand Nexari technology. The Nexari defenders took their positions in the main tunnels, their energy weapons charged with deadly power. When the first wave of hive warriors came rushing through the tunnels, the defenders opened fire. The energy beams struck the insects and bounced harmlessly off their thick carapaces. The hive warriors kept charging, their mandibles clicking with excitement. Impossible, Court 7 muttered. His confidence began to crack like his crystal armor under the hive assault. Switched to maximum power. The energy weapons fired again. At full strength, still the beams could not penetrate the hive armor. Within minutes, half the Nexar defenders were dead. The survivors began falling back toward the main colony. Court 7 sent a desperate message to the Galactic Defense Council. Tiamat 4, under attack. Hive forces overwhelming defenses. Request immediate assistance. The response came 3 hours later. The nearest council fleet was 2 days away. By then, the colony would be nothing but empty tunnels and harvested bones. As hive warriors swarmed through the mining tunnels, Court 7 made the decision that would save his remaining soldiers. He ordered a full retreat to the surface. The Nexari forces abandoned the colonists and fled to their ships in orbit. From the safety of space, Court 7 watched the hive systematically hunt down every living being in the colony. Warriors were in no hurry. They had time to enjoy their work. The distress signal from Tiamat 4 reached Earth Command at 0800 hours. Commander Lee Temin was reviewing training reports when the message came through. The colonial governor's voice shook with terror as he described the hive attack. "They're in the main residential areas now," the governor reported. "The Nexari forces have withdrawn to orbit. We have maybe 6 hours before they reach the children's shelter." Commander Lee set down his coffee cup. His hands were perfectly steady, but his eyes showed the fire building inside him. "How long to reach Tiamat for?" 18 hours at maximum." "Burn," replied his aide, Lieutenant Song Daeong. "Sir, we have no authority to intervene. The colony is outside Earth space." 3,000 civilians are about to die," Commander Lee said quietly. "I need authority from no one to save innocent lives." Within 30 minutes, the 7th Human Expeditionary Fleet was launching from Earth orbit. Colonel An Ji-hoon commanded. The ground forces, Captain Kim Min-ho, led the marine assault teams. Every ship pushed its engines beyond safe limits to reach Tiamat 4 in time. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace to find Nexari ships maintaining safe distance from the planet. Court 7's flagship sent a cold message to the humans. "This situation is beyond your capabilities," the Nexari commander stated. "Our superior weapons cannot penetrate hive armor. Your primitive technology will be useless."
Captain Kim Min-ho
did not bother to respond. He was already launching toward the planet's surface with his marines. The first transport ships landed in the mining colony's main shaft, while hive warriors were still hunting civilians in the lower levels. The marines moved through tunnels that the Nexari had abandoned. Bodies of crystal warriors lay scattered, where they had made their final stand. Their energy weapons were intact, but useless against hive carapaces. Corporal Han Subain was the first marine to encounter living colonists. He found a group of Aldorian families hiding in a storage room. Children were crying softly while their parents tried to comfort them. The sight of these innocent beings trapped and terrified hit Han like a physical blow. Tears began running down Han's face as he helped move the families toward the evacuation point. The Valdorian children looked up at the crying human soldier with confusion. In their experience, warriors did not weep. "Why do you cry, human warrior?" asked a small Valdorian girl. Han knelt down so he could look into her large eyes. "Because I'm sad that bad things happened to you," he said gently. "But I'm also angry, and that anger will help me fight the bugs." The first hive warriors appeared at the end of the tunnel. They charged toward the evacuation group with mandibles spread wide. Han raised his kinetic rifle and fired. The solid slugs punched through the insect armor that had stopped Nexari energy beams. 3 hive warriors went down immediately. The others hesitated, confused by weapons that actually hurt them. Han advanced while tears still ran down his cheeks, his rifle firing steadily. His sadness for the dead colonists had become fury at their killers. Lieutenant Song Daeong coordinated the main evacuation from the colony's central hub. Reports flooded in from all sections as Marines fought through hive-infested tunnels. The insects had never faced weapons like human kinetic rifles. Their armor was designed to stop energy weapons, not solid projectiles moving at high velocity. But the reports that confused Song Daeong came from her own forces. Marine after Marine was breaking down in tears as they found massacred colonists. Yet these same crying soldiers were fighting with incredible effectiveness. Their grief seemed to fuel their determination rather than weaken it. Sergeant Cho Yarum, the same woman the aliens had mocked 6 months earlier, led her squad through the children's shelter. They found evidence of hive feeding but also discovered 30 children still alive in a hidden room, as Yarum helped carry the terrified children to safety. Tears streamed down her face. The sight of what the hive had done to the other children filled her with anguish. But that same anguish drove her to fight harder than she had ever fought before. The evacuation took 16 hours. Human Marines went through every tunnel, every room, every hiding place. They found survivors that the Nexari sensors had missed. They recovered bodies that deserved proper burial. They fought hive warriors in close combat using tactics that confused the insect minds. When the last transport lifted off from TMO-24, it carried nearly 2,000 survivors. Captain Kim Min-ho stood on the bridge of his ship, looking down at the planet where so many had died. Tears ran down his face as he read the casualty reports. Court 7's ship approached the human fleet.
The Nexari commander's crystal body
Was dim with shame and confusion. Your soldiers were crying, Court 7 transmitted. I observed this throughout the operation. Yet they fought with greater effectiveness than any force I have witnessed. This contradicts all military doctrine. Kim Min-ho wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. We cry because we care, he said simply. And because we care, we fight harder than you can imagine. The human fleet began its journey home, carrying survivors who would never forget the crying warriors who saved them. Behind them, Court 7 remained in orbit around the dead world, trying to understand how tears could make soldiers stronger instead of weaker. The galaxy was about to learn a lesson it was not prepared for. News of the Tiamat 4 rescue spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. In every civilized system, beings spoke in hushed tones about the crying human warriors who had succeeded where advanced alien forces had failed. On the peaceful world of Valder Prime, the survivors told their stories. Children who had been rescued by weeping human Marines described soldiers who fought like demons while tears ran down their faces. The Valdorian Science Council listened to these accounts with growing fascination. Dr. Yoon Gi-woo received the invitation 3 weeks after the Tiamat incident. The Valdorian message was simple but unprecedented. They wanted a human scientist to study the combat footage from the rescue operation. No alien species had ever asked for human scientific expertise before. Dr. Yoon was a small woman with quick hands and curious eyes. She had spent her career studying human psychology and brain chemistry. Most of her colleagues thought her work was pointless. Who cared how human emotions worked when the galaxy considered humans too primitive to matter? Everything had changed. The Valdorian research facility was built into the side of a mountain, overlooking a crystal-clear lake. Dr. Yoon arrived to find the most advanced enopsychology laboratory in known space. Equipment worth more than Earth's entire defense budget lined the walls. We need to understand what happened at Tiamat 4, explained Professor Velnine, the lead Valdorian researcher. His soft fur was silver with age, and his large eyes showed genuine curiosity. Our initial analysis makes no sense. Emotional distress should impair combat performance, not enhance it. Dr. Yoon spent days reviewing the combat footage. Camera after camera showed the same impossible sight. Human Marines weeping while displaying tactical brilliance that surpassed anything in galactic military history. Corporal Ansubin appeared. On screen after screen, tears streaming down his face as he carried wounded civilians. But the data showed something remarkable. His reaction times were faster than normal. His accuracy with weapons improved. His pain tolerance increased dramatically. Look at these readings, Dr. Yoon said, pointing to brain scan data from the human soldiers. When they cry, their brains release complex chemical mixtures. These chemicals don't impair function, they enhance it. Professor Velnine's ears twitched with confusion. But emotional distress causes cognitive impairment in every species we have studied. Nexari thinking becomes clouded. Reptilian judgment grows unstable. How can humans be different? Dr. Yoon pulled up more data screens. Human tears contain neurochemical markers that indicate deep emotional processing. When we cry, we are not breaking down. We are integrating complex information at unconscious levels. The research revealed truth after truth that challenged galactic understanding. Crying humans showed improved pattern recognition. They demonstrated enhanced empathy that allowed perfect team coordination. Their pain tolerance increased to levels that seemed impossible. This Marine, Sergeant Cho Yerim, Dr. Yoon continued, highlighting footage of the woman who had been mocked at the Galactic Defense Council. Watch her tactical decisions during the rescue. The footage showed Yarim weeping as she coordinated evacuation routes, but her tear-blurred eyes somehow saw details that others missed. She spotted hidden passages that saved dozens of lives. She anticipated hive movement patterns that confused alien analysts. Her emotional state is not impairing her judgment, Professor Velnine observed with amazement. It appears to be enhancing her strategic thinking. Dr. Yoon nodded. Humans evolved on a world where survival required both individual strength and group cooperation. Our tears serve as chemical signals that boost both personal performance and social bonding. The breakthrough research took months to complete. When Dr. Yoon published her findings, the galactic scientific community reacted with shock and disbelief. The paper was titled Lacrimation as Cognitive Enhancement: The Neurochemistry of Human Combat Effectiveness. General Bai Taiyong was the first military leader to understand the implications. He'd commanded Earth forces for 20 years, watching alien species dismiss human capabilities. Now he had scientific proof that they were wrong. The general requested a meeting with the reconvened Galactic Defense Council. The same delegates who had rejected Earth's membership sat around the same circular table. But this time, their attitude was different. News of Tiamat 4 had reached every corner of space. Honorable delegates, General Bai began, standing where Commander Lee Temin had stood months earlier. 6 months ago, you rejected humanity because our soldiers cry. Today, I present evidence that you misunderstood our greatest strength. The holographic displays showed Dr. Yoon's research data. Brain scans of crying humans revealed enhanced cognitive function. Chemical analysis of tears showed neurological boosters more effective than any synthetic drug. Vorthok, the reptilian delegate who had led the mockery, shifted uncomfortably in his seat. His yellow eyes studied the data with growing unease. These readings suggest that human emotional responses actually improve combat performance, he admitted reluctantly. Surely this is an anomaly. Emotional control has been the foundation of military doctrine for millennia. Major Quan Minji stepped forward to address the council. She was young for her rank, with steady hands and intelligent eyes. In her arms, she carried a tactical simulation device used for officer training. With your permission, I would like to demonstrate human tactical capabilities, she said calmly. The simulation began immediately. It showed a planetary invasion scenario with multiple enemy forces attacking civilian populations. Standard galactic doctrine called for controlled, logical responses that minimized military losses while accepting civilian casualties. Major Quan began running the simulation. Within minutes, tears were running down her cheeks as she reviewed the projected civilian deaths. But instead of becoming confused or distracted, her tactical thinking became more creative and effective. She is crying, observed Quartz Prime, the next Nexari representative. Yet her strategy is superior to anything in our databases. Major Quan's emotional response to theoretical casualties drove her to develop innovative solutions. She found ways to save civilian lives that cold logic had missed. Her empathy for the innocent became tactical brilliance that achieved objectives while minimizing all casualties. Dr. Kong Seo-young, Earth's leading neurological researcher, presented the final piece of evidence. Her studies showed that human tears triggered hormonal responses throughout the body. Immune system strengthened. Cognitive flexibility increased. Social bonds that were crucial for unit cohesion became unbreakable. You mistake our greatest strength for weakness, General Bai said to the stunned assembly. Human emotions do not cloud judgment, they sharpen it. The evidence was overwhelming, but many delegates still struggled to accept it. Their entire understanding of military effectiveness was based on emotional suppression. How could tears make warriors stronger? The answer came 3 days later. Emergency signals flooded galactic communication networks. 3 more colonies were under attack by different hive fleets. The insects had learned from their defeat at Tiamat 4 and were launching coordinated strikes across the galaxy. Traditional. Alien forces responded according to established doctrine. The results were disasters. Nixari energy weapons remained useless against improved hive armor. Reptilian tactical strategies were too predictable for adaptive insect minds. Colony after colony fell to the swarming attackers. Human forces received no official authorization to intervene, but Captain Kim Min-ho and his Marines arrived at each battle zone anyway. They fought with tears in their eyes and victory in their hearts. At Colony Zephyr 7, Lieutenant Song Daeong coordinated defenses while openly weeping for projected casualties. Her emotional state allowed her to anticipate hive tactics that baffled alien commanders. The colony survived with minimal losses. At Mining Station Omega 12, Colonel On Ji-hoon led a desperate last stand against overwhelming odds. His tears for fallen comrades fueled tactical innovations that turned certain defeat into unlikely victory. The pattern was clear to anyone with eyes to see. Human forces consistently achieved impossible victories against the same enemies that defeated advanced alien militaries. In the council chambers of Apex 7, delegates watched battle reports with growing amazement and fear. Everything they believed about warfare was crumbling before their eyes. Vorthok rose from his seat, his reptilian pride finally broken by undeniable evidence. "It appears," he said in a voice like grinding stone, "that we have much to learn from these humans." The vote was called again. This time, it was unanimous. Earth's membership in the Galactic Defense Council was approved without a single dissenting voice. But more than membership had changed. The galaxy was beginning to understand that the crying warriors of Earth possessed something more valuable than any weapon or technology. They had found a way to turn love into strength, sorrow into strategy, the age into triumph. The age of human military leadership was about to begin. The message arrived at Earth's War College on a quiet Thursday morning. Colonel Ru Woojin was reviewing training schedules when his communication device chimed with an incoming transmission from Nexari High Command. "This is unprecedented." His aide, Lieutenant Park Gi-yeon, said as she read the message. "The Nexari are requesting a tactical training exchange program. They want to send their officers to study under human instructors." Colonel Ru set down his coffee and read the message carefully. After centuries of considering themselves the galaxy's superior military force, crystal beings were asking humans to teach them how to fight. "How many officers do they want to send?" he asked. 50 of their best tactical minds," Lieutenant Park replied. "And sir, there's more. The reptilians have sent a similar request. Even some hive worlds that recently joined civilized space want to participate." Within 6 weeks, the first alien students arrived at Earth's War College in the mountains of Colorado. The facility had been built to train human officers, but now it would host the strangest class in galactic history. Clef 9 was among the first Nexari students to arrive. His crystalline body was perfectly transparent, allowing others to see the complex light patterns that served as his thoughts. He had studied human combat footage for months, but seeing actual humans in person was different. Professor Na Yunho taught the basic strategy course. He was an older man with gray hair and kind eyes that had seen too many wars. On the first day of class, he began by showing historical footage of Earth's greatest military disasters. "These are battles we lost," Professor Na explained to his mixed class of human and alien students. "We lost because our commanders made emotional decisions without proper planning." The footage showed human generals weeping over battle plans that led to massive casualties. Clef 9's crystal body pulsed with confusion. If emotions enhanced human performance, why were these generals failing? "Now watch this," Professor Na continued, showing footage from the Battle of New Seoul. Here General Kim Young-ho is also crying as he plans the attack, but notice the difference. The second general wept for the same reasons as the first. but his tears came after careful analysis of enemy positions. His emotional response enhanced already solid tactical thinking rather than replacing it. Emotion without knowledge is chaos, Professor Ene explained. But knowledge without emotion is incomplete. The combination creates something greater than either part alone. Cleth9 began to understand. Human tears were not magical. They were simply one part of a complex system that balanced careful thinking with deep feeling. Captain Sesek arrived 2 weeks later. As the nephew of Vorthok, the reptilian who had once mocked human weakness, he carried the shame of his family's prejudice. His green scales were darker than most reptilians, and his yellow eyes showed intelligence that his uncle lacked. Sesek joined the advanced tactics class taught by Captain Chenhone. She was a veteran of the Tiama 4 rescue, and her reputation among alien students was already legendary. Today we will study urban combat scenarios, Captain Chen announced. You will work in mixed teams of humans and aliens. The simulation began immediately. A terrorist group had taken hostages in a city center. Standard Galactic doctrine called for a direct assault that would likely result in heavy casualties among both hostages and attackers. Sesek found himself partnered with Li Chaeyung, a young human cadet with bright eyes and steady hands. As they studied the tactical situation, Chaeyung began to cry softly. "Why do you leak water?" Sesek asked, with genuine curiosity rather than mockery. "Because children are among the hostages," Chaeyung replied, wiping her eyes. "I'm thinking about how scared they must be." Sesek expected this emotional response to cloud the human's judgment. Instead, Chaeyung's empathy for the hostages led her to spot escape routes that Sek's logical analysis had missed. Her tears enhanced rather than impaired her tactical thinking. "Your crying helps you think better?" Sesek asked with amazement. "It helps me think more completely," Chaeyung corrected. "I consider not just what we want to achieve, but who we want to protect." The mixed teams consistently outperformed pure alien units by significant margins. Human emotional intelligence, combined with alien technological knowledge, created strategies that neither species could develop alone. The breakthrough moment came during a live exercise in the college's training facility. Commander Oseojin was leading a simulated planetary invasion against robotic opponents programmed with advanced AI. The exercise began like any other. Human and alien students worked together to plan their assault on a heavily defended position. But as Commander O reviewed casualty projections, tears began running down his face. "Sir, are you experiencing system malfunction?" asked a Nexari student with concern. "No," Commander O replied, still crying as he studied the battle plans. "I'm processing the emotional cost of our decisions." What happened next amazed every alien observer. Mandaro's tears triggered a creative breakthrough that revolutionized the entire battle plan. His emotional response to projected casualties led him to develop a revolutionary flanking maneuver that achieved all objectives. While reducing casualties by 60%, the alien students watched in stunned silence as their human instructor demonstrated tactical brilliance while openly weeping. Everything they had been taught about military leadership was wrong. Cleth9's crystal body began flickering in unusual patterns. The flickers came whenever he considered civilian casualties. In tactical scenarios, for a Nexari, this was equivalent to crying. "I am experiencing emotional resonance," he reported to his instructors with confusion. "My tactical analysis is becoming more complex," instead of treating this as a malfunction. The human instructors encouraged Cleth9 to explore his new emotional responses. The results were remarkable. His strategic thinking became more nuanced and effective than any Nixari commander in recorded history. Captain Sesek began experiencing similar changes. When planning rescue operations, he found himself considering the fear and pain of victims, rather than just tactical objectives. This new perspective led him to develop strategies that saved more lives while achieving mission goals more efficiently. The training program expanded rapidly. Word spread throughout the galaxy that human military academies were producing officers with capabilities that defied traditional understanding. Requests for admission flooded in from dozens of species. Lieutenant Colonel M. Suyang established the Integrated Emotional Command, a training program. Her classes taught alien officers how to recognize and use their own species' emotional responses to enhance tactical thinking. Every species has emotional capabilities, she explained to a class of mixed alien students. You've simply been taught to suppress them instead of integrating them into your decision-making process. The results spoke for themselves. Graduated alien officers returned to their home fleets with enhanced capabilities that amazed their superiors. Battle simulations that had stumped military minds for decades were solved by officers who learned to think with their hearts as well as their minds. 6 months after the first alien students arrived, Earth's War College had become the most sought-after military institution in the galaxy. Former skeptics like Vorthok himself applied for admission, swallowing their pride to learn from the species they had once mocked. Captain Shinhone stood before her latest class of mixed-species cadets. Humans, Nexari, reptilians, and even reformed hive drones sat together in the same classroom. Today you will learn the most important lesson in military strategy, she announced. True strength comes not from suppressing who you are, but from embracing everything you can become. The galaxy was changing, one tier at a time. The first reports came from the outer rim of the galaxy. Deep space monitoring stations detected massive objects emerging from the void between galaxies. These objects were larger than moons and moved with mechanical precision that chilled the souls of every living being who saw them. The Devourer Armada had awakened. Admiral Shin Min-soo stood in the command center of Horizon Station, the galaxy's most advanced military facility. Around him, holographic displays showed the approaching fleet of ancient machines. Each Devourer ship was kilometers long and bristled with weapons that could crack planets in half. How many ships? Admiral Shin asked his tactical officer, Commander. Lee Soman. Our sensors count over 3,000 capital ships, she replied, her voice steady despite the magnitude of the threat. Each one appears to be fully automated with adaptive artificial intelligence. Admiral Shin felt a familiar tightness in his chest. He had faced many enemies in his 30-year career, but nothing like this. The Devourers were legend, ancient machines that had consumed entire civilizations before disappearing into dark space. Millions of years ago, now they had returned. The first battle took place at Kepler Station, a mining facility protected by the best Nexari fleet in the galaxy. Admiral Quartz Prime commanded 200 crystal ships equipped with the most advanced energy weapons known to science. The battle lasted exactly 17 minutes. The Devourers analyzed Nexari tactics within the first minute of combat. Their adaptive algorithms studied every energy pattern, every tactical maneuver, every defensive formation. By minute 2, they had developed perfect counters to every Nexari strategy. The crystal ships fought bravely, but their logical, predictable tactics were useless against enemies that learned faster than they could adapt. When the smoke cleared, Kepler Station was nothing but debris floating in space. Similar disasters followed across the galaxy. Reptilian fleets met the same fate at Sigma Prime. Their aggressive but predictable assault patterns were analyzed and defeated within minutes. Even the reformed hive forces, with their swarm tactics, proved ineffective against machines that could predict every move. The Galactic Defense Council convened an emergency session aboard Horizon Station. Delegates from every member species sat around the familiar circular table, but this time their faces showed only fear and desperation. Our fleets are being destroyed faster than we can deploy them, reported General Vorthok, his reptilian pride completely shattered. The Devourers adapt to every tactic we use. Traditional military doctrine is useless. Admiral Shin Min-soo listened to report after report of devastating defeats. The pattern was always the same. Alien forces would engage. The Devourers using established tactics. The machines would analyze these tactics within minutes and develop perfect counters. Total defeat would follow. We need a new approach, Admiral Shin announced to the Council. Tears began running down his face as he reviewed casualty reports from the latest battles. Millions of beings had died while he sat safe in his command center. The alien delegates watched with fascination as the human Admiral continued commanding the galaxy's defense while openly weeping. 6 months ago, they would have considered such behavior a sign of weakness. They understood it was a sign of strength. Sir Commander Lee Soman approached with new intelligence reports. Human scouts have engaged small Devourer units near Earth space. The results are ... unusual. Admiral Shin wiped his eyes and studied the reports. Captain Kim Minho had encountered a Devourer patrol with only 3 ships. Instead of following standard tactical doctrine, his emotional state had driven him to use completely unpredictable strategies. The Devourers had been unable to adapt quickly enough to tactics that made no logical sense. Captain Kim had won a minor victory, but more importantly, he had proven that the machines could be confused. The Devourers' algorithms are designed to counter logical military thinking, Admiral Shin realized. But human emotional responses create tactical patterns that their programming cannot predict. General Im Hai-wan joined the strategy session as reports continued flooding in from across the galaxy. She was one of Earth's most experienced combat commanders, a woman who had learned to use her emotions as weapons rather than weaknesses. "We need to coordinate a galaxy-wide counterattack," she announced to the assembled council. "But it cannot follow any established doctrine. Our tactics must be driven by emotion rather than logic." "That is madness," protested Quartz Prime. "Military campaigns require careful planning and logical execution." "Logical execution is exactly what the Devourers expect," General Im replied. "Their artificial intelligence cannot process commanders who make decisions based on love, grief, anger, or hope." The desperate plan took shape over the following days. Human commanders would lead mixed fleets using emotional decision-making to confuse Devourer adaptive systems. It was the most illogical military strategy in galactic history. The decisive battle took place in the Centauri system, where a massive Devourer fleet was preparing to assault Earth itself. Admiral Shin commanded the largest fleet ever assembled, with ships from every species in the galaxy. As the battle began, Admiral Shin stood on his bridge and let tears flow freely down his face. He wept for every being who had died in previous battles. He wept for the families who would lose loved ones in the coming fight. He wept for the possibility that this might be civilization's final stand, but his tears did not cloud his judgment. They sharpened it. "All ships execute plan compassion," Admiral Shin ordered, his voice steady despite his emotional state. The human-led fleet attacked using tactics that violated every principle of military science. Captain Young Jisoo led a suicidal charge directly into the Devourer formation while tears streamed down his face. His grief for projected casualties drove him to take risks that no sane commander would consider. The Devourers' artificial intelligence tried to process this seemingly irrational behavior. Their algorithms searched for logical patterns in Yang's attack, but found none. The machines hesitated for crucial seconds, unable to predict what the crying human would do next. Those seconds were enough. Yang's emotional unpredictability allowed him to break through Devourer defenses and strike at their command ships. Commander Park. Minna coordinated civilian evacuations while openly weeping for the millions of innocents caught in the battle zone. Her empathy-driven decisions prioritized saving lives over strategic objectives, creating tactical patterns that the Devourers could not compute. The machines expected commanders to sacrifice civilians for military advantage. When human leaders did the opposite, their algorithms failed to predict subsequent moves. The battle raged for hours. Human emotions created tactical chaos that confused artificial intelligence designed to counter logical thinking. Alien officers who had learned emotional command techniques fought alongside their human instructors, their tears and fears becoming weapons against mechanical precision. General Im Hai-wan led the final assault on the Devourer flagship. Her tactical decisions were driven entirely by her love for the innocent beings she was protecting. The artificial intelligence commanding the enemy fleet could not process strategies based on love rather than conquest. When the Devourer flagship exploded, taking their command network with it, the remaining machines found themselves unable to adapt without central coordination. The fleet that had seemed invincible was defeated by enemies who fought with their hearts instead of their heads. As the smoke cleared from the greatest battle in galactic history, Admiral Shin Minsu stood among the wreckage of ancient machines, and felt pride mixing with his grief. The tears that had once been mocked as human weakness had become the key to victory. The Devourer threat was ended, but more importantly, the galaxy had learned its greatest lesson. Emotion was not the enemy of logic. It was logic's most powerful ally. Commander Lee Soman approached her admiral with the final casualty reports. "Sir, the fleet is requesting orders." Admiral Shin wiped his eyes and looked out at the mixed fleet of human and alien ships. Warriors from dozens of species had learned to fight with both their minds and their hearts. "Tell them to return home," he said softly. "The galaxy is safe, and it's safe because we finally learned that strength comes not from suppressing who we are, but from embracing everything we feel." The age of purely logical warfare was over. The age of emotional intelligence had begun. 5 years had passed since the defeat of the Devourer Armada. The galaxy was at peace, but it was a different kind of peace than had existed before. This was peace built on understanding rather than fear, cooperation rather than competition. On the world of New Terra, the Galactic Military Academy rose from fertile plains like a crystal monument to hope. The building's architecture blended styles from dozens of species, creating something beautiful that no single culture could have designed alone. Director General Seo Dong-yoon walked through the Academy's main corridor, observing the morning classes. Through transparent walls. In one room, human instructors taught Nexari cadets how to use emotional resonance to enhance tactical thinking. In another, reformed hive drones learned the difference between mindless aggression and purposeful determination. The Academy had become more than just a military school. It was a symbol of how the galaxy had changed. "Sir, the morning briefing is ready," announced his aide, Lieutenant Kong Minju. She was young and eager, one of the new generation who had grown up in a galaxy where crying warriors were heroes. Rather than jokes, Director General Seo nodded and made his way to the briefing room. Along the walls, portraits showed the greatest military leaders in galactic history. Admiral Shin Min-soo was there, tears visible on his face as he commanded the final battle against the Devourers. General Im Hai-wan smiled from another portrait, her eyes bright with the compassion that had saved millions of lives. But the most prominent portrait showed a reptilian figure with scales darker than most of his species. This Director Vorthok stood beside Director General Seo, no longer the arrogant delegate who had once mocked human weakness. "The morning enrollment reports," Sir Vorthok said, offering a datapad with one of his clawed hands. His yellow eyes, once cold with superiority, now showed warmth that would have been impossible years earlier. Director General Seo reviewed the numbers with satisfaction. Applications continued pouring in from across the galaxy. Young beings from every species wanted to learn the integration of emotion and logic that had become known as the human method. "How many reptilian applicants this cycle?" Seo asked. "Over 3,000, Vorthok replied with pride. "My nephew Sesek has established emotional command training programs on 17 reptilian worlds. The old ways of suppressing all feeling are being abandoned." Through the briefing room's large windows, they could see the morning formation exercises. Cadets from dozens of species stood in perfect ranks, but this was not the rigid military precision of the old galaxy. These formations pulsed with life and emotion. Commander Clethwelf, the first Nexari to master emotional resonance, led a mixed unit of crystal beings and humans through tactical exercises. His body flickered with the light patterns that indicated deep feeling, something that would have been considered a malfunction in the old days. Professor Kim Naeon entered the briefing room carrying her morning class roster. She had become the galaxy's leading expert on emotional strategic intelligence, the formal academic term for what everyone still called the human method. "Director, the advanced strategy course is completely filled," she reported with a smile. "We have a waiting list of over 500 applicants." "What species are requesting the most training?" Director General Seo asked. "Surprisingly, the hive colonies," Professor Kim replied. "They've discovered that individual emotional responses actually enhance their collective intelligence rather than disrupting it." The transformation of the hive had been one of the most remarkable changes in the post-Devourer galaxy. The insect species had learned that tears and compassion made their swarm tactics more effective, not less. Hive commanders who wept for fallen. Drones found ways to achieve objectives with fewer casualties. A soft chime indicated the start of mourning ceremonies. Director General SEO and his staff made their way to the main assembly hall, where hundreds of cadets from across the galaxy gathered each day. The Academy's motto was carved into the wall in 12 different languages: strength through feeling, victory through tears. Below it, in smaller text, was a quote from Admiral Shin Minsu: "The warrior who cannot cry cannot truly fight." The day's speaker was Captain Lim Jun, a veteran of both the Tiamat rescue and the final battle against the She took the podium as cadets of every species listened with respectful attention. 5 years ago, Captain Lim began, the galaxy believed that emotion was the enemy of military effectiveness. Today, you represent a new understanding. You know, that feeling deeply and thinking clearly are not opposites. They are partners. In the audience, a young Nexari cadet's crystal body flickered with emotional resonance. A reptilian student wiped moisture from his eyes, the first tears his species had shed in generations. Human cadets sat alongside former enemies, all learning the same vital lesson. The old galaxy mocked our tears, Captain Lim continued. They saw our grief for fallen enemies as weakness. They watched our soldiers weep for civilian casualties and called us unfit for war. She paused, letting her own eyes fill with tears as she remembered friends lost in battles across the stars. But we proved them wrong. We showed that warriors who care fight harder than warriors who don't. We demonstrated that leaders who feel deeply make better decisions than leaders who feel nothing. The graduation ceremony took place that afternoon. Cadets who had spent 2 years learning to integrate emotion and logic prepared to return to their home fleets as officers in the new galactic military. Among the graduates was Zexprim, Nexari, who had learned to use his light patterns as tactical advantages. His emotional responses allowed him to anticipate enemy movements that pure logic could not predict. SSTHAK the Younger, grandson of the original Vorthok, received his commission as a reptilian fleet commander. Unlike his grandfather's generation, he viewed tears as tools of war rather than signs of defeat. Even 3 reformed hive drones graduated, their individual emotional development enhancing their species' collective consciousness in ways that military scientists were still studying. Commander Li Sujin, now a senior instructor at the academy, administered the final oath to the graduating class. Her own eyes were wet with pride as she watched beings from across the galaxy pledge to serve with both courage and compassion. "You go forth into a galaxy that has learned the value of tears," she told the graduates. "Your mission is not just to defend worlds and protect the innocent. Your mission is to teach others that strength and gentleness can exist in the same heart." The ceremony ended with the traditional moment of silence for all those who had died. Believing that emotion was weakness, human soldiers who had been mocked for caring, alien warriors who had suppressed their feelings until they forgot how to feel at all, as the sun set over New Terra, Director General SEO stood on the Academy's observation deck with Vice-Director Vorthok. Below them, graduates prepared to depart for assignments across the galaxy. They would carry with them the most important lesson in military history: let those who fight for love fight better than those who fight for conquest. "Do you ever regret the changes?" Director General SEO asked his reptilian colleague. Vorthok was quiet for a long moment, his yellow eyes reflecting the setting sun. When he spoke, his voice carried emotions that his species had not expressed for millennia. "I regret that it took so long for us to understand," he said softly. "I regret the years we wasted believing that strength meant never showing weakness. But regret the changes themselves? Never." A transport ship lifted off from the Academy's landing field, carrying new officers to their first assignments. Among them were beings who would face conflicts with wisdom learned from human tears, compassion gained from human example, and strength drawn from human understanding that feeling deeply made warriors fight better, not worse. The galaxy had learned its greatest lesson from the species it had once dismissed as too emotional for war. Now those same emotions protected every world, defended every innocent life.
Us.
and ensured that never again would the galaxy face threats like the Devourers without the full power of heart and mind working together. In the distance, stars began to appear in the darkening sky. Each point of light represented worlds where former enemies now served together, where tears were honored rather than hidden, and where the galaxy's greatest military academies taught cadets that the strongest warriors were those who dared to care. The age of emotional suppression was over. The age of integrated warfare had begun, and it all started with humans who cried,